The storm clouds were thick and dark when the human ship Aurora dropped out of hyperspace above an uncharted world. The crew had followed a strange distress signal that repeated the same 3 words again and again. "Bury me here." No human ship should exist anywhere near this sector, yet the signal was clearly human-made. That mystery alone was enough to shake even Captain Rylan, a man who never feared deep space. The planet below looked dead from orbit. No cities, no lights, no signs of life, only deserts and black mountains stretching across the surface like scars. Still, the scanner detected a faint life form near the source of the signal. Against all logic, something, or someone, was alive down there. Rylan ordered the landing team to prepare. Lieutenant Mara, the team's best scout, felt uneasy the moment the ship broke through the atmosphere. She couldn't read the planet, and that scared her. There was no wind, no animals, no sound, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The team reached a field of half-buried stone pillars. Each pillar had symbols carved into it, sharp and angry, like warnings left for trespassers. At the center of the field was a shallow grave marked by a metallic plate. And on the plate, written in shaky English, were the same words from the distress signal. "Bury me here." But the grave was not empty. A faint voice echoed from beneath the sand, weak and tired. "Go away, let me die." The team froze in shock. A living being was under the sand, begging to be left alone. They dug quickly and pulled out a thin, pale alien woman with silver hair and gray skin. Her eyes opened slowly, full of fear rather than hope. Her name, she whispered, was Lyra. And the first thing she said once she could breathe was, "I am not breeding material, leave me here." Nobody understood what she meant. But her voice shook with real terror. She tried to pull away from them, like a prisoner dragged back to torture. Her people, she said, had abandoned her. She was considered weak, unfit, and useless for their reproduction system. They left her to die alone on this dead world. But there was something more, something she refused to explain. Every time Rylan asked why the plate was written in English, she looked away. Every time Mara asked who buried her here, her hands shook. Finally, in a whisper, she said, "A human was here, long before you arrived." That sentence hit the team like cold ice. Humans had never charted this region, never even passed near it. No mission logs, no lost ships, nothing. The idea that a human reached this world first made no sense. Mara explored the area and soon shouted for the others. They ran to her and saw something that made the entire team fall silent. Half buried in the sand was a skeletal body in an old, rusted Earth exploration suit. The bones were human, clearly human. Beside the skeleton were scratched words in the rock, written with desperate hands. "If you find her, protect her." And below it, another line. "She carries something impossible." Rylan felt a chill run through him. Lyra stepped back, trembling, refusing to look at the remains. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "He tried to save me, but he died because of me." Before Rylan could ask another question, the ground shook. A low vibration spread through the sand like something massive waking up beneath them. Lyra shouted in fear. "They are coming back, my people, they will kill you if they find me alive." The team looked to the sky as shadows passed overhead. Unknown shapes moved through the clouds, hunting, scanning, searching. The message carved by the dead human echoed in their minds. "Protect her." And at that moment, Rylan knew one thing clearly. This mission had become far more dangerous than he ever imagined. The chamber fell silent as the alien soldiers stepped forward, their armor glowing with blue warning lights. Captain Rylan raised his hands slowly, signaling his crew to stay calm. Mara moved protectively in front of Lyra, even though her hands trembled slightly. The alien commander stood taller than any human, his skin dark and marked with glowing lines. His voice echoed through the chamber like metal grinding on stone. "Return the hybrid," he said, and even though the words were in his language, Lyra translated in a shaking whisper. Rylan kept his eyes on the commander. "This child doesn't belong to you," he said firmly. The alien soldiers tightened their formation, their weapons humming with dangerous energy. Lyra stepped forward despite her fear. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "You took him from me, you took everything from me." The commander's cold eyes studied her like she was a broken tool. "You were not chosen to breed," he replied through Lyra's translation. "You disobeyed your genetic order." Lyra trembled, tears falling down her face. "I only loved him, that human saved me, he protected me, he gave me hope." The commander snarled in disgust. "Humans are unstable, chaotic, and dangerous." He pointed at the stasis pod with a sharp gesture. "A hybrid like this could destroy our future." Rylan stepped forward, anger burning in his voice. "You fear a child because it has human DNA." The commander turned to him slowly. "We fear what humans become when mixed with others." His voice turned colder. "You evolve too fast, you adapt too easily, you change the worlds around you." He raised his weapon. "We cannot allow such a creature to exist." Mara moved between the commander and the pod. "You're not touching this child," she said, even though her voice shook. The alien soldiers aimed their rifles in response. The air vibrated with the tension of a battle waiting to explode. Lyra suddenly shouted. "Wait!" Her voice echoed across the chamber, stopping everyone for a second. She stepped closer to the commander, her eyes filled with emotion instead of fear. "You left me to die because you thought I was weak." She pointed at the pod behind her. "But this child survived everything you did, stronger than you imagined." The commander stared at her with no hint of sympathy. "That is why it must be destroyed," he replied. Lyra shook her head. "No, that is why it must live." She touched the pod gently, her hand glowing faintly as it made contact with the energy field. The child inside the pod moved for the first time. A small hand pressed against the glass. The commander's eyes widened in alarm. "Do not touch it." But it was too late. The pod suddenly activated on its own, responding to the presence of its mother. Bright light filled the chamber, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. The machines hummed louder and louder until the stasis locks released with a sharp hiss. The pod opened slowly, cold mist rolling across the floor like fog. The child inside took his first breath without support. His eyes opened, not alien, not human, but something new and glowing with soft, golden light. Everyone stood frozen, even the alien soldiers. The hybrid child looked at Lyra and reached toward her, recognizing her instantly. Lyra fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she pulled him close. "My baby, you are alive," she whispered. The commander stepped back in horror. "The prophecy, it is real," he muttered. Mara exchanged confused looks with Rylan. "What prophecy?" she asked. Lyra looked up slowly, fear returning to her face. "The hybrid who awakens will change the galaxy," she whispered. "And my people believe he will bring war." The alien soldiers raised their weapons again in fear. Rylan shouted for the crew to stand ready. The child's eyes began to glow brighter, reacting to the danger around him. The chamber filled with rising energy. And everyone realized the next moment could alter the fate of two species forever. The Aurora lifted off the forbidden planet with shaking engines. Captain Rylan kept looking at the sky, afraid the shadows they saw earlier would return. Lyra sat in the corner of the ship's med bay, wrapped in a thermal blanket, her eyes unfocused. She looked like someone who had been running from fear her entire life. Lieutenant Mara scanned Lyra's vitals, trying to understand what made this alien so important. Lyra's heartbeat was faster than any human's, her blood carried strange patterns, and her DNA was unlike anything the crew had seen. Still, she remained silent, her hands shaking as she repeated the same words. "I should not be alive." I am not breeding material. Rylan stood beside her and spoke gently. We don't leave people to die, not humans, not aliens. Lyra flinched at the word human, as if it carried both hope and pain. She stared at the floor and whispered. One human saved me, and another human may die because of me again. The crew exchanged confused looks. The skeleton on the planet was still fresh in their minds. Who was that human explorer, and how had he reached a location no human mission had ever visited? The mystery grew heavier with every passing minute. Mara uploaded the data from the metallic plate found near Lyra's grave. The message was definitely written by a human hand. The scratches, the pressure marks, the desperate carving, all matched human movements. There was no doubt about it. A human had lived on that planet long enough to bury Lyra alive in a protective chamber, and long enough to die trying to warn others. As the ship moved deeper into space, Lyra finally spoke again. My people will follow us. Her voice was thin, barely more than air. They will not allow me to live because of what happened, because of the child. The room fell silent. Rylan leaned forward slowly. What child? He asked, keeping his voice steady. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to keep old memories from escaping. The child that should not exist, the child they took from me. Mara stepped closer, her eyes widening. You had a child. But your people abandoned you because you're not breeding material. Lyra nodded weakly. That is true. I was not chosen for reproduction. I was considered weak, a failure. Then her voice broke. But I became pregnant anyway, because of a human. The med bay suddenly felt colder. Rylan tried to keep his voice calm. A human? From where? I do not know, Lyra whispered. He fell from the sky many years ago, wounded, broken, but kind. She swallowed hard. He tried to save me, and our child, but my people found him. Rylan clenched his fists, knowing what that meant. Lyra continued, her words trembling like fragile glass. My people fear humans, they fear your DNA, your strength, your unpredictability. She looked at Rylan with sorrowful eyes. A hybrid child is something they cannot allow to exist. Before the crew could respond, alarms blared through the ship. A red warning filled every screen. Unidentified vessel detected, approaching fast. Through the viewport, a massive warship dropped out of warp space, dark and sharp like a blade cutting through the stars. Lyra gasped and backed away from the glass. It is them, she whispered. They found me. The alien ship began scanning the aurora, sending pulses of energy that made the human systems flicker. Rylan ordered the crew to prepare evasive maneuvers. Mara grabbed Lyra's hand to keep her steady. The alien voice boomed through the comms in a language no human knew. But Lyra translated with shaking lips. They are demanding I surrender, and they are demanding the return of the hybrid child. The crew stared at her in shock. The child is still alive, Lyra whispered, tears forming. And they will destroy all of you to take it. The aurora shuddered as the alien warship locked weapons. Rylan made his decision in one breath. We're not giving you up, he said. And the chase began. The aurora rushed through the asteroid field as the alien warship followed close behind. Rylan pushed the engines to their limit, knowing the ship could break apart at any moment. Sharp rocks spun around them like giant knives, scraping the shields with every turn. But the alien ship stayed right on their trail, silent and terrifying. Lyra held the side rail tightly, her whole body shaking from fear. They will not stop, she whispered, her voice barely audible. To them, the hybrid child is not a child, it is a weapon. Mara looked at her with confusion and anger. Why would they take your child? What do they want from it? Lyra lowered her head. They want control, they want power, they fear what a human alien child could become. The ship took a sharp dive to avoid a massive asteroid. The crew nearly fell from their seats as the hull creaked loudly. Ryland shouted across the bridge. "If we keep running, they will blast us apart." He turned to Lyra. "We need to know everything, right now." Lyra swallowed hard, her silver eyes filled with guilt. "They took my child at birth, they hid it from me, they said it was dangerous." She closed her eyes as memories returned. "I felt its heartbeat only once. I heard it cry, and then they took it away." Her voice cracked like something breaking inside her. "I thought it died, but now I know it is alive." Before anyone could respond, the ship shook violently. The alien warship fired a warning blast that grazed the shields. Alarms screamed across the bridge. "Shields at 60%, the engineer called out. Ryland forced the ship into a narrow tunnel of floating rock, hoping to lose the enemy. For a moment, silence returned. Only the soft hum of the engines filled the air. Mara looked at the scanners and frowned. "Captain, the alien ship is pulling back." Ryland didn't relax. "That means they're setting a trap." Lyra suddenly stood up, her eyes wide with realization. "They know where we are going." Mara turned to her sharply. "Where are we going?" Lyra pointed toward the planet on the screen, covered in storms and shadows. "That is where they hid the hybrid, that is where my child is." The aurora descended through the thick clouds, lightning cracking around the hull. The planet was darker than the one they left earlier, filled with volcanic smoke and frozen valleys. It felt like a place abandoned by time itself. The scanners detected an underground structure deep beneath the northern cliffs. And inside it, a faint life signal, neither fully human, nor fully alien. The team prepared to land. Each member grabbed their gear, checking their weapons and suits. Lyra stepped forward, her fear replaced with a strange calmness. "I must go with you," she said softly. "He will know me, he will feel me." The landing was rough as the ship touched the icy surface. Storm winds pushed against them like angry hands. The crew moved toward a crack in the cliffside where energy readings were strongest. Inside, they found a tunnel glowing with alien symbols. Lyra whispered the translations under her breath. "Entry forbidden, hybrid containment, genetic anomaly." The deeper they walked, the colder the air became. Small ice crystals formed on the walls, shining like stars in the dark. The tunnel opened into a large chamber filled with old machines and broken pods. In the center was a single working stasis pod glowing faint blue. Mara wiped frost from the glass to look inside. Her breath caught in her throat. "It's a child," she whispered. "A living child." Inside the pod was a small, fragile figure with gray skin like Lyra, but human-shaped eyes and human hands. The child floated peacefully, unaware of the world outside. Lyra covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "My baby, he survived." The soft moment was broken by a loud metallic thud behind them. The crew spun around in shock. Standing in the tunnel entrance was a large alien commander in full armor. Behind him, soldiers filled the chamber like a tide of shadows. Their weapons pointed directly at the humans. Lyra gasped in terror. "They found us," she whispered. And the chamber lit up with weapon sights and cold blue lights. The hunt had ended. But the real battle had just begun. The chamber shook with rising energy as the hybrid child clung to Lyra. His glowing eyes reflected pure fear, not anger, but the alien soldiers did not understand this. They stepped forward with their weapons raised, convinced the child was a threat. Captain Ryland moved between them and the child, refusing to step aside. "You fire, and this ends badly for everyone," he warned. The alien commander hissed in frustration. "The prophecy cannot be allowed to come true," he said. "Human blood corrupts everything it touches." Lyra held her child close, shaking her head. "No, human blood saved me, and gave my son life." The commander took aim at the child. His weapon began to glow with deadly energy. Mara raised her rifle too, standing firm beside Rylan with fire in her eyes. "You want that child," she growled. "You'll have to get through us first." For a moment, everyone stood locked in place. No one dared to move. The tension in the air felt thick enough to crush someone. The hybrid child whimpered softly, sensing the danger around him. Then something strange happened. A pulse of golden light spread from the child's body. It washed over the chamber like a warm wave. The alien soldiers froze, confused, their weapons flickering. The child's eyes glowed brighter as he looked at each person in the room. It was not an attack. It was fear, pure fear reaching outward. Lyra whispered. "He is not starting a war, he is calling for help." The commander's weapon dimmed for a moment. He looked shaken, as if the light touched a part of him he did not want to feel. Rylan realized the truth first. It's empathy, the child can project emotions. Another pulse spread, warmer than the first. This time the soldiers lowered their weapons slightly. Not because they were ordered to, but because for the first time, they felt the child's fear and pain. The hybrid was not a weapon. He was a frightened child who had never known freedom. The commander shook his head violently, trying to resist the emotion. "No, this is manipulation," he said. "Human traits mixed with our genes create unnatural power." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady and full of strength she never showed before. "No, human traits create compassion, something your people forgot." Rylan supported her. "You fear the child because you don't understand him." Mara added. "You fear humans because we adapt, but adaptation is not destruction." The commander looked around at his soldiers. Their hands were trembling, their weapons lowered. Doubt filled their eyes, something not common in their species. The prophecy they feared for generations was unfolding differently than expected. The child reached a small hand toward the commander. Golden light glowed again, softer this time, like an invitation for peace. The commander hesitated, confused by the simple, innocent gesture. In that moment, the child showed more courage than anyone in the room. But the commander finally stepped back and lowered his weapon. "We cannot take him," he said quietly. "He has chosen you." He looked at Rylan and Lyra with a heavy expression. "Protect him, or he will be hunted for the rest of his life." The soldiers retreated slowly, recognizing their defeat. Not by force, but by something stronger. Something they never believed humans or hybrids could possess. Pure emotion. As they left the underground chamber, Lyra hugged her child tightly. She whispered promises of safety, love, and a new life far from fear. Rylan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're part of our crew now, and your son too." The Aurora lifted off the dark planet, escaping before more enemies arrived. Lyra watched the stars through the window, her child asleep in her arms. For the first time in her life, she felt hope. A hope strong enough to change entire species. A hope strong enough to start peace instead of war. But as the ship entered hyperspace, Mara noticed a pulsing signal blinking on the scanner. A message sent from the alien commander's ship. One final warning sent across the galaxy. The hybrid has escaped, prepare for what comes next. The war was not guaranteed. But the future had changed forever. And humanity stood at the center of it all.